My name is Stephanie, and I'm a member of the Ontario Coalition Against Poverty, who is proud to host this evening. And I just wanted to first let you know that the format tonight will be really simple. We have two speakers. We'll hear from them, and then we'll take questions from you. If there's anybody who doesn't want to be caught on camera by accident, it's probably a good idea to sit more towards the back, but mostly the cameras are just shooting over your head, so not a big deal. And help yourself to tea and coffee and food, which is off to the side. Before I introduce the speakers and the special guests that we have in this room, I wanted to thank PARC, the Parkdale Activity and Recreation Center, and especially the members of PARC, who were the ones who pushed to make this meeting happen on really short notice, and thank you very much. And I feel it's pretty important to talk about why it means a lot to have this event in this room, at this drop-in, and in this neighborhood. And it sort of set the context for why there are so many of us here tonight. Specifically, the relationship between poor people living in this city that fight not only by living their lives every single day, but who also have the courage to take that fight to the powers that beat people down. The relationship between poor people in the west and the north and the east ends of this city and the Mohawks of Tyendinaga goes back a long time. Whether it's been through huge gifts of deer and fish, I know that as recently as this year, some of the deer hunt from Tyendinaga was distributed to people in this drop-in and also used to prepare a big meal in a Palestinian community center in Mississauga. And such meat has been served at OCAP demonstrations for years. So whether it's that or whether it's through actions that we've taken together against the government, throwing the furniture of a certain Tory minister out into the street definitely stands out. Woo! Whether it's the trip that a lot of people who use this drop-in took to Tyendinaga for a ceremony to break the ground on the very site where food is grown for a distribution program and the new longhouse is now sitting, whether it's that or whether it's the ways in which people in this city and some of the flags that are up in this room represent some of the organizations and communities that have been doing this work. The Coalition Against Israeli Apartheid, No One Is Illegal, the Ontario Coalition Against Poverty, and people who frequent drop-ins across the city. The work that people do to tell the stories of what's happening on the reserve, work to make the connections between the struggles for the land here and in Palestine, the work to break down some of the huge distance that exists and keeps us all apart. That work, those examples, they're few, there are so many more, but that's part of the reason why we're here, and it's about a relationship that should and does strengthen all of us, and that's a relationship of struggle. Maybe it doesn't seem obvious. After all, it was non-natives who stole the land from the original people of this earth, and that's our history, and our history still lives on. The housing we fight for, the streets, the parks, the corners that we're trying to keep as our spaces to live, all of this is on stolen land. So how is this relationship supposed to work? How can it work? Why should it work? Obviously, the legacy of robbery means we have a responsibility to step up. So this is an opportunity to learn more, understand the fight for the Culbertson, and to continue to push that fight in whatever way that we can. But this is also about uniting in the face of a common enemy and uniting to break down what has the ability to destroy all of us and to make something better, whether we're talking about welfare, whether we're talking about healthcare, whether we're talking about decent housing, or whether we're talking about the places that people end up, jail, on the streets, living lives of poverty. Those are all connections. And tonight we're going to hear about how people in Tyendinaga have not lost heart, which means that we can't either. And if your back is up against the wall, you take back housing, you take back power, you fuck with the trains, you stand up. And that's why we're here. And I want to give a special thanks to Dustin and Sue and Sean and the others who made the trip down to share that with us. So thank you. So to introduce our first speaker, Peter Rosenthal of Roche Schwartz and Associates has proven time and time again how determined and willing he is to defend poor people, and to defend First Nations people, including representing members of the George family at the Ipperwash Inquiry. Peter works tirelessly to defend people fighting for dignity when the state tries to shut us down. And while this is certainly not the first time that he's represented Sean, this current battle involves representing several members of the Mohawks of the Bay of Quinte in both criminal and civil attacks that are being waged against them in the fight for the Culbertson Tract. Peter has a resume that's way too long for me to list, but suffice it to say, countless people who deal with the cops and the law in their lives every day on the streets and on the battle lines would have a hell of a lot harder time keeping it up without fighters like Peter at our side. So I give you Peter Rosenthal.
Thank you very much. Is this microphone working too? First off, I should say I'm very proud to be representing Sean Brandt in these matters. And secondly, I should say that I'm very glad that at Roach Schwartz Associates we have a team working on this. And Sarah Vance and Mike Leetold, who are known to many of you, are working at least as hard on this as I am. Also, I should, with respect to representation at the Ipperwash Inquiry, there are sensitivities of various kinds. I should indicate I represented, along with Jackie Esmond of my firm, some of the relatives of Dudley George. When you say the family of Dudley George, there was Mary Klippenstein represented the family member who was most prominent in the news, Sam George, and a couple of his sisters and so on. And I don't want confusion in that respect. There were a number of Aboriginal parties at Ipperwash with basically the same interests, but some diverging interests as well. And I should say, by the way, that the Ipperwash report, long awaited by many people, will be released on May 31st in Forest, Ontario. Now, Sean Brandt. The report on Sean Brandt. It's not going to be written for many years. It's going to have to be a very big report. But with respect to the present issues, you know probably that a year ago or thereabouts, Sean and colleagues blocked CN Rail in support of people from other First Nations. But then a month or so ago, they blocked it in their own support with respect to their land claims, and Sean, I'm sure, is going to tell you all about that. What I think I can most usefully tell you about is the legal mess that has ensued. At the time that they were, this year, blockading the tracks, went on for some period of time. There were various negotiations. And the OPP said to them, communicated to them, if you leave by 6 o'clock the next morning, there won't be any criminal charges. And they left, and nobody was charged for a couple of days. But then, and according to the evidence that we have, on the direct instructions of Commissioner Fantino himself, Sean Brandt was charged with 3 criminal offenses. He was arrested on those charges and appeared in court and was released on bail, and he's due back in court on the criminal charges in Napanee on June 26. And that's one thing to keep in mind. Sean is facing 3 criminal charges as a result of that blockade. While he was in custody, for several hours he was in custody before the bail hearing, he was served by representatives of CN with a statement of claim against him and his colleagues, and also with a notice of motion. I want to explain that to you so you know what the difference between the 2 different things is and so on. First, there was a statement of claim, and there is a statement of claim. A statement of claim is what begins a general court action if you're suing for money or for other compensation. This statement of claim is between Canadian National Railway Company, on the one hand, plaintiff, and on the other hand, a number of defendants, Sean Brandt, Jason Maracle, Tara Green, Mohawks of the Bay of Quinte First Nation, John Doe, Jane Doe, and persons unknown. So I wanted to be... Is Jane Doe here?